What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of the Fanboys Anonymous Group Meeting Podcast. I am your host, the owner of fanboysanonymous.com, Tony Mango, and I'm joined on this panel by a fellow fanboy, Sam Lassio. What's up, Sam?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm doing all right. A little tired, but we got shit we got to talk about because we've been sleeping on this topic. There's a good little pun there. Yeah, made that up on the spot. Not too tired to not make up stupid ass puns, but the other day we ran into a situation where a bunch of huge news was announced, and we didn't end up writing anything about it really for the most part on Fanboys Anonymous, so we figured that would end up being the group meeting for this month. That is that Sony has come to an agreement with Marvel. They are going to be sharing Spider-Man now. He will be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're going to reboot the series. No more Andrew Garfield, which, damn it, that sucks.
Yeah.
But they are going to go for a younger cast. They're going to try to fix whatever you can fix with Spider-Man, which, for the record, I'm just going to say this. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 have a lot of flaws, but I don't think that they were this series screwing horrible abomination like Batman and Robin.
No. I would put the best movie of my favorite of the two new ones was the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I'd put that definitely better than Spider-Man 3.
Oh,
and yeah. I would even put it on par, maybe a little bit better to me than the original Spider-Man.
I still think out of all of them, the first Spider-Man is the most structurally found movie.
Mm-hmm.
Structurally sound. That's really dumb. Mixing that with film. But there's things about Amazing Spider-Man 2 that I really liked. And if you guys want to hear our opinions about this, we did a review point of that back in the day when that came out. My basic opinion about the whole thing was it was a fun movie that felt like I was watching a comic book film. And yeah, there's flaws. You know, there's things that they could have fixed and they could have tightened up. But I think with those two films, it was mostly studio screwing everybody over than actually the movies themselves. So
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yep. Spoiling that broth. That Spider-Man Webby broth. But nonetheless, we are in a situation now where some of the Sony representatives are still going to have power, but thankfully Marvel's going to be like, no, that was fucking stupid. We're not going to do this. Kevin Feige is going to be in charge of a lot of this, and he knows what he's doing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, you know, when you take out Avi Arad and you insert Kevin Feige, it's definitely going to be better.
Well, Avi Arad's still involved.
Oh, he is? Son of a bitch.
Yep. Yeah, he's still involved. I think the basic gist of it, though, is going to be Sony has final say in everything that goes on with these new movies, but I think it's going to come down to Feige says, hey, you guys should do this. And then there's going to be a press release where Sony's like, we've decided to do this. Where really, I don't think they're going to listen to Feige. Otherwise, they wouldn't have struck this deal.
Right.
But I think they're going to save face and like pretend that his decisions were their decisions.
Plus, I think that they are just kind of like their egos getting in the way.
Yeah.
And you're in a situation where they don't want to admit that they failed, and Amy Pascal and the other people involved, that it was their fault, as opposed to Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield and all the other people like that. So they're probably trying to figure out a way where they can look like the good guys, and it can still be like, well, it's not Sony that's at fault here. It's just a couple people on the creative team. And I don't know, one way or another, we're in a situation where we're going to get a reboot. They have said that they want to kind of go back to the basics. They want him to be more of a teenager, and they don't want to just redo the origin story, which, thank God, I don't want to see a third one of those.
Yeah.
But now that gets us into the first topic that we're going to do here. We're going to split this up into 5 different segments. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be 5 different videos. If you're on iTunes or on Stitcher, then, you know, you're not going to have to do anything. It's just going to go into each topic, and, you know, you're welcome for me doing that editing. The first topic that we're going to talk about, though, is one of the biggest ones, and that's going to probably take up most of the time of this whole first part. We're going to, you know, throw in a couple other things in the meantime, but when people are talking about this rebate, man, I'm just retarded tonight, aren't I?
Off the
This
cuff, guys, off the cuff.
Yeah, this reboot idea, a lot of people are bringing up this argument of this is our opportunity to have Miles Morales instead. Uh, that brings us into this little debate, which is not even going to be much of a debate because we're both on the same uh, wavelength here. Peter Parker or Miles Morales? Who do you go with for the Spider-Man character? Do you take advantage of a reboot and do you do the Miles Morales incarnation, or do you stick with the classic Peter Parker? And we're both on board, Peter Parker all the way.
Yep.
What are your reasonings for why we should go with Peter Parker?
Well, a lot of people in the know of comics always tend to say that the hero isn't just a man or woman, but that they're more than that. Like they kind of did that in The Dark Knight, where it's not the man behind the mask that matters. It's the hero, and anybody can step up to that mantle.
It's what I do underneath it.
It's what I do that defines me.
That's how that feels.
But I've always been of the opinion that there is only one Captain America, and that's Steve Rogers. Yep. There is only one Iron Man, and there is only one Batman. There is only one Spider-Man. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I agree with a lot of the comments, though, that people say. We definitely need more representation in comics. A lot of the most popular comic book characters were created between the 40s and maybe the 60s into the 70s?
Yeah.
With the exception of the 1930s giving us Batman and Superman, but generally the 40s to the beginning of the 70s are where our major comic book characters come from. And back in that day, they were men and they were white. That was just the way it was.
And if they weren't, they were like horribly in the racial spectrum of like, let's make Luke Cage, but he's gonna look like we're trying to make fun of the black people in the 70s and stuff.
Oh yeah, it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Asian characters in like the Captain America comics, like Japanese people. Oh my god, and the Mandarin. Like, you couldn't do that now. That's why a lot of our characters have changed over time. My biggest problem is Spider-Man is more of a recent addition to this for me, but as long as you don't change the core aspects of who that character is, everything else is on the table to change. Like, a lot of people are complaining about the recent Jason Momoa picture, saying that Aquaman should be blonde. Being blonde is not core to who Aquaman is. Like, yeah, he's always represented as being a blonde-haired guy, but that's not core to who he is. You are not going to cast, like, Jackie Chan as Aquaman. Well, you're not going to cast him as, like, Black Panther. Because being black
you might not
is pretty core. Hell yeah. What do I know?
I might. I want to see this movie.
Yeah. Being black is core to who the Black Panther is. Being black is core to who Jon Stewart is. There's not too many characters unless, unfortunately, that character is a very racist character. Not many characters are core for being white. So you can play around with that. My only issue is with Spider-Man, and actually with Green Lantern. If you're going to change something, you don't make Peter Parker black, and you don't make Hal Jordan black. Because Jon Stewart came about because there was more representation with comics. They wanted a new black character, they made a new black Green Lantern. But once you make Hal Jordan black, it's like, okay, there's thousands, if not millions, of Green Lanterns, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not getting the words across just right. Hopefully, you guys know what I'm talking about here, but like Miles Morales was created for the purpose of more representation in comics. Now, a lot of people felt that it was a publicity stunt, that it's like, we're going to create a Spider-Man, and guess what, guys? He's black and Hispanic. Wink. Like, a lot of people thought that's what was going on,
Yeah, might as
which,
well go with the trifecta and make him gay as well.
basically. But,
He can have
that
a half sister who's paraplegic, and his mom can be from the south, and his dad can be from the north, and like one side of the family votes Republican, one side votes Democrat. They're just like, we're just gonna hit everything on here.
and then there's the adopted gay child that votes libertarian.
Yeah.
But
His love interest is part Asian, part Indian, part, it just this whole mixture. They're just like, let's just do everything.
one is like asexual, doesn't identify as a gender.
Yeah.
Just
One's
represent
transgender.
represent everybody. But I mean, if you want to change something about a character, like I said, as long as it's not core to who they are, go for it. But in the case of like Green Lantern, where you have a staple black Green Lantern, making Hal Jordan black, I feel doesn't diminish the Jordan or the Stewart character, but he became like a symbol that back in the day that people could get behind, like a black superhero that was actually prominent. He was in the Justice League. Like, he was actually important instead of just being like token black superhero number 2 like the Falcon used to be. So when you make Miles Morales perfect, you've created a new superhero. You've given him the title of Spider-Man, but he's a different person. He's got his own problems. He's got his own flaws and benefits as Spider-Man. A little bit of a different power set, too. So he becomes more interesting in that regard. Once you make Peter Parker black, I feel like, okay, you had something special with Miles in that sense. But now you're just going to make Peter black, too. Like, maybe being a straight white guy, I'm not getting it. But Tony, what do you think where I'm coming at with that?
I'm on board with the same idea and a little bit in opposition. It sort of depends. I'm somebody who is really, really into organization. Not that I have like OCD or something, but it bothers me when we see a lot of like wasted space in different things. I've never liked the idea, for instance, that there are so many different Flashes.
Right.
And if you take, say, Jay Garrick back in the day, first original Flash, is pretty stupid. I mean, back when he was created, sure, people were fine with him wearing a pasta strainer on his head. But, Barry Allen is the main source of where Flash comes from. But I like Wally West better. And the reason I like Wally West better is because he's got more of a role in the Justice League than Barry Allen does as far as balancing out the team. There's so many different people in the Justice League. There's, for the main members, I should say, Batman is obviously going to be the human representative, and he's the smart, dark, brooding one. Superman is the god, essentially. Wonder Woman is that pissed off warrior, bitchy woman. Green Lantern has struggled a little bit because he doesn't have as much of a role that's clearly defined. And then the Flash has even less of a role when he's Barry Allen, because Barry Allen isn't the same as Wally West. Wally West is the fun one. And when you have Barry Allen in there, then we get what we get in the New 52, where Hal Jordan is the fun one. Well, then what the fuck is Barry Allen? He's just another guy. And you know what?
He's smart like Batman, but he's not brooding and dark. He's just intelligent, but serious.
He's smart enough to not be an idiot, but he's not smart enough to be the smart one. He's not powerful. He is powerful enough to be like one of the most powerful, but that's clearly Superman's role. He's not dark and brooding. He's not a warrior. He's not a versatile one like Green Lantern would be. He's not a representative of like an alien culture like Martian Manhunter. Like, Barry Allen's just kind of there.
He's not like the heart of the team either. There's no place you could put him in.
Right, like at most you could say that he's the heart of the team and make him like the most compassionate one, but then that kind of makes Superman become a dick, because that's part of his thing, is that he's the ideal hope guy. And then you throw in Bart Allen and Wally West and whatever. Like, to me, when it comes to The Flash, I wish that they would just go, look, guys, I know that this is a rich history, but if we were going to try to do like our own ultimate kind of thing, let's just make Barry Allen have the same funny mannerisms as Wally West. And then you don't need Wally West anymore. Because Wally really isn't anything other than Barry Allen plus the funny side.
Yeah.
Bart Allen, fuck him. He's just completely pointless. But the same kind of goes for a lot of the other characters. And I want whoever can balance things out the most and at the same time be a representative of what the core character is, like you were saying. So if I see Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I want the main Spider-Man, which is Peter Parker. If I see Green Lantern in the Justice League movie, I want Hal Jordan. Now, true, there's Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, Simon Baz, or Boz, I don't know how to pronounce that, Jon Stewart, Alan Scott, which, first off, fuck Alan Scott the same way as Jay Garrick, because those characters got revamped for a reason. Yeah. But you know what? At the same time, people will complain and they'll be like, we need Jon Stewart in the Justice League. All right, how are you going to make Jon Stewart be useful in the Justice League? You've got dark brooding Batman. You've got pretty much dark brooding Superman. Guaranteed Wonder Woman's going to be dark and brooding. You've got Barry Allen, who probably won't have... Well, they haven't actually confirmed that it's Barry Allen, I don't think.
Yeah, they just said he's going to play the Flash.
Yeah, so he might be Wally. I don't know about that. He is either going to be the funny one or he's going to be the same, just struggling to figure out what he's doing anyway. You've got Aquaman, who's going to be dark and brooding and a warrior and whatever. What's Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart is... It sounds horrible to say. He's the token black Green Lantern who...
And he's dark and brooding.
Yeah, he's kind of, pissed off, angry, militant type of guy.
Yeah, he was a Marine, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
He's a serious guy. Hal isn't that serious.
Right. Now, Kyle is like this beacon of hope and stuff. Okay, well, if you're going to give me Kyle, give me Hal. Because Kyle isn't as rich in the comics as far as, like, bringing on the Green Lantern story as Hal is. And if you're going to give me Guy Gardner, fuck you, I don't want Guy Gardner either. The reason I want Hal Jordan is because there's more to do with Hal Jordan, and he's a more basic representative of what the Green Lantern Corps is, and that's why I don't want any of those. Like, it has nothing to do with Jon Stewart being black, or Kyle Rayner being white, or Hal Jordan being white, or whatever. I don't want Rayner, Stewart, Gardner, Scott, Simon, I don't want Kilowog to be the goddamn Green Lantern in the movie. I want it to be Hal Jordan, and I want it to be Barry Allen, and I want it to be Superman. I don't want it to be Superboy. There were people that were saying that the new Batman in this continuity, what if that would be Joseph Gordon-Levitt? No. I don't want Joseph Gordon-Levitt to be Batman. I want Bruce Wayne to be Batman. Just the same as, I love the Dick Grayson character, but Dick Grayson is Nightwing or Robin, depending on when you go with. He's not Batman. Like, Marvel Boy is not Captain Marvel, and Superboy is not Superman. And if you are giving me an X-Men movie, I want Wolverine, not Daken or X-23 or whatever. So I don't want Miles, just the same as I don't want Miguel O'Hara, just the same as I don't want Ben Reilly.
Right.
And it's not just like, well, what if you need more representation for, the different races and stuff? You definitely do. But you can play around with certain characters and you can recast characters as different ethnicities and stuff. But you don't do it and sacrifice the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is Miles Morales going to bring that Peter Parker can't? If Miles is the fun quipping kind of guy, as far as I know, he isn't the same like that. I don't really know too much about a lot of that story because I didn't see the point in getting into it.
Right.
He's got no strong supporting characters. We're going to talk in later parts of this podcast about who should be the villain, who should be the relationships and all that. Well, if you can argue back and forth of Gwen and Mary Jane and Liz Allen and Deborah Whitman and all that, how many people do you really have for a love interest for Miles? Right. And do you really want to see Miles Morales quipping back and forth with Robert Downey Jr. as opposed to Peter Parker, where they can, fuck around with like the Aunt May thing, and they've got, there's just a rich history behind that.
Mhm.
So those are good reasons why, but that actually brings into another thing. I mentioned why not just have fucking Ben Reilly if you want to do something different. Well, why not have Kane? Why not have Gwen Stacy? She's fucking Spider-Woman now, or whatever they're calling her.
Right.
If you really want to complain and be like, well, we shouldn't just have the white generic male, why don't I hear the same argument about Gwen Stacy? Or why don't we go with Mayday Parker and make her Spider-Girl? Or, for that matter, people bring up the whole Michael B. Jordan thing for Fantastic Four, which I'll say right now, Michael B. Jordan can and probably will be a really good Johnny Storm.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me about it isn't that they cast a non-white guy to be Johnny Storm. It's that they had Kate Mara as his sister. And then now they're saying that, okay, well, to make up for that, we're going to say that she's adopted. All right, well, now you're going out of your way to try to explain certain things. You're creating more of a problem and then having to fix the problem. When really, couldn't you just go with, like, their half-siblings? There you go, a lot easier.
In that case, though, half-siblings is pretty hard to explain when one is obviously a black guy and one is obviously a white girl. Like, they're not, like, lighter and darker in their own regards, looking a little similar kind of a thing. But, I mean, you're right. Like, Michael B. Jordan could be great as Johnny Storm. But, like you said, they go out of their way then to have to correct things about the character's history, when they could have just made Sue Storm a black actress.
Yeah. And you know what? There would still be people complaining, and they'd be like, neither of them are black and whatever like that. A lot of the people complaining, and this is just the truth of the matter, a lot of the people complaining about that kind of a situation are closet racists.
Yeah.
And, you can argue that Captain America cannot be black. He pretty much can't be. He's
because of the time period he lived in.
Right. But if you gave me, say, a black Charles Xavier, okay. He could be black. If you gave me an Asian, hell, we're getting Will Smith is going to be Deadshot. I think he's going to kick ass at that role. If they would have cast an Asian like in the role, or if they would have cast somebody Middle Eastern in the role or something, go ahead if he's going to be good at it. Now, if you go with somebody like, we're going to recast, who's somebody else that we can bring out there, who's like an iconic character that they would never recast, other than Batman, Superman, those kind of things.
What about Stark?
Even Tony Stark, if they were to find somebody who wasn't a white person that could play the part, it would depend on the person, of course, no matter what, because there's tons of white people that couldn't play that part. It's not like race has anything to do with acting talent. But, if you were to find somebody that could pull that off, mixed or not, then you know what? Sell me on the idea of who the person is. That's why I think Michael B. Jordan could be good. He's got a lot of the mannerisms of Johnny Storm, and I don't know too much about the mannerisms of Miles Morales, but I know that Peter Parker's got a hell of a lot stronger of a story to go with. And it's the same kind of mentality of you go with the iconic person as opposed to the person that you want to be a political statement. Because if you want to bring attention, okay, you can bring attention through good storytelling. You don't need to bring attention through just a superficial thing. That's one of the things that bothers me about this whole Ant-Man movie. Ant-Man, to me, feels like they went out of their way to screw around, play with the mechanics of stuff, because they wanted to do that 60s thing. And it's like, you know what? You shouldn't have just been so stuck on the 60s thing. I still think that movie's going to suck. But
I'm still on the fence about it, but I'm still going to go see it opening.
No matter what, I'm going to see it, Yeah. Hell, I thought that Guardians of the Galaxy was going to suck, and I went to see that opening night.
Yeah.
If you're going to make
Marvel's bought my soul at that point.
Yeah. If you're going to make a Fantastic Four movie, I want the Fantastic Four to be Ben Grimm, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and Johnny Storm. I don't want Spider-Man or She-Hulk to be in the Fantastic Four, even though they've been in the comics.
Right.
And I don't want Miguel O'Hara to be Spider-Man just because he's been Spider-Man in the comics. And I don't want a future Green Arrow adaptation of the movies or even in the TV show. Green Arrow is Oliver Queen. He's not fucking Connor Hawke. He's not what the hell's the other guy that took the mantle?
Didn't Roy take it at one point?
He might have, yeah. And it's like
But I mean,
Roy
he still had
is,
one arm at that point.
yeah, Roy is either Arsenal, Speedy, or Red Arrow. Like he's, I don't want anybody in any of those roles to be played around with because you don't need to do the exact adaptation of the stories in the comics, but you shouldn't just fly in the face of them just to do something different. Like, a lot of people are saying that Spider-Man should be a big part of the Civil War thing. I would have been fine if he wasn't.
Yeah, they were gonna have Black Panther as part of that.
Yeah, and you know what? If they had an idea for how that would work, that probably would work.
Yeah.
Well,
that's part of the thing with this whole Sony deal, is that Marvel really didn't need Spider-Man. It's amazing that they have him.
Amazing.
Yeah. But the fact that they have him is just sort of like the cherry on top.
Right.
Marvel was making money. They had great movies coming out. They made Guardians of the Galaxy the second highest grossing movie of 2014. They don't need Spider-Man. But now that they have him, all the better. Sony is the ones, they were the ones who were like hemorrhaging money and like dying with like blood coming out on the side of the road. Like they're the ones that needed the medical assistance. Not Marvel. Marvel just kind of got an extra little bullet in their gun. Sony having Marvel stepping in to help them is going to profit for Sony a lot better.
Right. And that you bring up another topic, you just reminded me of it. It's sort of a transition here, but a little bit on the same playing field. Sony was depending on Marvel to get them out of a rut because they were dying. Miles is a character that is completely dependent upon Peter Parker having died.
Right.
Miles Morales doesn't just get to be Spider-Man out of the blue. He takes on the role because Spider-Man died. You know what? At the same token, Bane became Batman at one point. Do you want Bane to be Batman in the fucking movies? No.
Right. And I had it described to me this way, too. If you go, we forget sometimes being so immersed in comic books, and anybody listening to this is probably going to be, if not immersed, familiar with the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to any single movie theater anywhere, and you survey people as they're in the theater going to see the movies, and you say, hey, do you know who Miles Morales is? What, you're going to get 2 people that have heard of him? And if you say, who's Spider-Man? Almost all of them are going to say Peter Parker.
Right.
They're not going to know who Miles is. Miles isn't the name drawer to Spider-Man. Peter is. Now, whether Peter is white or black, I'm still going to go see the movie. I'm not going to be upset if I hear that they made a casting choice and it was a black kid. That doesn't bother me. I'll have my preferences, sure, but it's not going to be the end-all be-all. But if I hear they chose Miles, I'm going to be really confused, and I'm going to think that this movie's not going to be what I thought it could have been had they gone with Peter.
Right. Yeah, in the same kind of way, because I would be just as upset if they said that they were going with Miles Morales as if they said they were going with Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, oh my god, you can cast the same person as Ben Reilly as you would Peter Parker because they're literally clones, but I don't want Ben Reilly to be my Spider-Man. Like, just, it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
I am totally good with changing the adaptation of some characters around. I'm totally good with recasting people a little bit if they work out that way to get some more diversity in there. You can even change characters' genders sometimes and it'll work. If you would have told me that instead of, say, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of somebody from that like the Spider-Man universe instead of, I keep going to Batman because Batman's always my favorite character, but let's say you take one of the villains, Alistair Smythe, the first name that came to my mind,
Okay.
and you made Alistair Smythe Allison Smythe. Okay. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna complain. Like,
not a big deal.
yeah,
They did that with Dr. Kafka in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
yeah,
Dr. Kafka's a woman in the comics. They made it a man.
yeah.
No big
And
deal.
my complaint about that wasn't, oh my god, he's a dude. What the hell? That's screwing it all up. It was, this guy's like ridiculously over the top German, and I'm supposed to laugh at this. This is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if you would classify it as racist, but definitely uncomfortable just how German he was.
right. But I think that this all boils down to, look, if you want more representation for different ethnic characters and stuff like that, I'm on board. Just don't screw up the source material. And if you want Miles Morales to be a bigger part of the comics when they reboot all this kind of stuff, dude, you can go ahead and do it. Make him Spider-Boy. Make him the sidekick.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? Make him a different Spider-Man spin-off character. You've got,
Yeah.
like...
I wouldn't mind seeing a Spider-Man trilogy with Peter and say, hey, now instead of do something similar in the comics. Don't just have like Spider-Man and then there's a movie with Spider-Man where he crosses over and then in the second Spider-Man he's back. You could do it like Peter goes off to join the Avengers to fight Thanos. Well, while that's going on, Miles could still be in New York City.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could do this kind of stuff. And the argument that I keep hearing from everybody that goes for Miles Morales is, yeah, but we've already seen Peter Parker before. Yeah, you know what?
You've seen Bruce Wayne before.
I was just going to say, we've seen Bruce Wayne before. And do you really see anybody clamoring and going with, oh, man, you know what, though? Instead of having Bruce Wayne, how about we get somebody like a Ben Affleck and he just plays, like, as real?
Yeah.
Nobody's complaining about that. So if you guys have a better argument for why Miles Morales should be in there, and it isn't just I want to see a non-white person or I'm tired of Peter Parker, definitely leave a comment below on YouTube, or if you're listening on iTunes and Stitcher, leave a comment on the Fanboys post itself on the article. But I'm highly doubting that we're going to get any of that.
Yeah.
And if, in the same regard, if you're somebody who only doesn't want Miles in the movie because he's not white, then dude, come on, it's 2015.
Right.
So, two ends of the spectrum. If you're pro-racist or anti-racist, you're both stupid.
Would you say then that this is a color spectrum?
That was good. We're going to talk about casting ideas for different roles, mostly Spider-Man and mostly Peter Parker, is what we should say, in the fourth part of this. But part one is pretty much done and over with, I think. We are going to talk about villains in the next part, so click on the next video, or if you are on iTunes and Stitcher, just stay tuned, wait about a couple of seconds, and we'll keep talking right after this. Welcome back. We are on part 2 of episode 16 of the Fanboys Anonymous group meeting podcast about the Spider-Man reboot that Sony and Marvel are going to bring to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We talked in the first part of Peter Parker or Miles Morales, essentially boiling it down to, we're going with Peter Parker. So now there's more of a back and forth when it comes to our next topic that we're going to break down, and that is, who should the villain or villains be in the movie? This is something where it isn't as much of, you gotta go with this. It's a personal preference, and it's things that are going to be weighed whether or not you should reboot and do the same characters, or you should do something different, or what. I'm going to throw out a couple things right here, though, that I think that we can eliminate right off the bat. Neither of us are going to pick Big Wheel.
Well, hold on, Tony. You can't speak for me on that one.
That's true. You might be going with Mr. Negative or Spot or something, but, you know.
We're like the 5 people that keep screaming Shocker for some reason.
Actually, I'm going to make a case about Shocker in a few minutes, but.
Oh, God.
Yeah. There's a lot of characters in the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery that you just can't do. And as much as you could do them on a TV show, especially like an animated show for kids, you're never going to bring Stegron into the film universe, or the fucking Hypno Hustler. If we see, you know, a live action Marvel Cinematic Universe adaptation and Molten Man is what you go with, then you're making the wrong decision. It's, you can go with a lot of different things here, and you can reboot the same kind of characters we've seen before. You can do different ones or whatever, but there really is only a list of about 20 characters that you can do. So before we get into specifics about this, do you think they should go with somebody new, or do you think that we should redo some of the ones we've already seen before?
I would personally say let's bring somebody new. Spider-Man is one of the few characters, well, at least with Marvel, because with DC you've got Batman and characters that have like a very large, rich rogues gallery. Spider-Man is one of those classic characters who there are a ton of his villains that are not only famous, but cool enough that they've even crossed over with other characters before. They're not just unique to Spider-Man. So, you can list off, right off the bat, 5 characters. I couldn't probably even list off 5 characters for Iron Man without, pausing and being like, oh, well, wait, yeah, there was that guy.
It's doubtful. Like we mentioned in the first part, you interview people standing in line and go, who's Miles Morales? And they might not know. If you go, all right, name Iron Man characters, people aren't going to be like, all right, there's Titanium Man and Madam Mask and
Crimson Dynamo.
Spy Master.
They're not going to know all those.
The Unicorn, dude. Oh, shit, Unicorn's the fucking man.
But all you have to do is say, okay, name a Spider-Man villain. Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, Kingpin, Spider Slayer, Doc Ock, Shocker, Mysterio, Rhino. You can literally just go down, 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 and just
Jamie
start
Foxx.
I would personally say because he has such a rich rogues gallery that you go with somebody new.
I'm going to go in the same regard here because I think that, look, if we're going to get a reboot, we don't need to reboot the same thing that we've seen before. And I do agree that some people are goblined out. We've already watched Harry in 4 movies. We've seen Norman in 4 movies. And they've been fighting as goblins in 3 of them. I don't need to see another Green Goblin for a while. And you know what? Since the Amazing Spider-Man films had set up this idea of Norman being like the Emperor, essentially, and they just never got to it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to see that either. I don't want to see them have to build up a trilogy, because I don't want a trilogy at this point.
Yeah. I don't want just a one-off, but I would like to see a franchise, but not solely just focused on Spider-Man either.
Yeah, you don't need to make this 1, 2, and 3, and we'll get into that a little bit with the part 5, the future movies and stuff. But if you're going with a new character, who would you want to see, or characters for villains?
I would say when it comes to villains with Spider-Man, you're gonna see the Spider-Man character in an MCU crossover film before you see him in his solo film. Since we're going to get the solo film being the second time we see the character, we still, at least to me, I would like to still see some crossover, considering he is a character that's in New York City. So he's in a character that has been hit by the Chitauri invasion from Avengers. So there's a rich pool that you can play with now, that you have a main character who's in that city. I would personally like to see Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, who is going to be in the Daredevil Netflix series. I would like to see him brought to the Spider-Man film and trying with his resources and wealth to replicate what happened to Peter Parker and Spider-Man and create Scorpion.
So you got Kingpin is the Overlord, Scorpion is the fight sequence, essentially.
Yes. As long as he doesn't die by the end of the Netflix series, which I don't believe he will.
No, I don't think that. I think that they're going to keep him around for a long time because D'Onofrio is a big enough name and Kingpin's a big enough character. Right. It's different if they kill off Stiltman or something.
Yeah, and Kingpin is already, because he's in the Netflix series, which is part of the cinematic universe, he's already in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to reestablish him. You will for the movie, just for people who didn't see the Netflix show. But you're not going to have to go out of your way to create this character, because all you have to do is just pull whatever happens after the Netflix show is over.
Right. Now, I like that idea of bringing Kingpin in there, especially because not only does that give more of a tie into the Netflix series and more of a reason for people to go, shit, you know what? I gotta go check out that prequel. Essentially, is what they'll look at it as.
Yeah.
But that brings in a totally different aspect of the Spider-Man series that we've never been able to see in the movies so far. We've pretty much stayed to costumed, comic booky type of characters in the Sam Raimi films, and in the
villains he could punch basically.
yeah, and even though he shouldn't have been able to punch Doc Ock.
Yeah.
And then in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, we've gotten the weird science-y offspring characters.
Yeah.
But we didn't see the mafia aspect. Spider-Man has a ton of people in his rogues gallery that aren't really these, science experiments gone wrong. You've got the Kingpin, you've got Hammerhead, you've got the what do they call them? The Kingpin's main crew. Shit.
Oh.
There's somebody who starts with an F, and I can't remember him off the top of my head now. His main primary people, though, are people that Spider-Man can fight with.
From the 90s cartoon, he was really associated with Smythe a lot.
Yeah, he had a lot to do with Smythe and a little bit with, like, Silvermane.
He set up the Sinister Six.
That's true. There's the Sinister Six in that one, which they still want to do that. We'll talk about that a little bit later, too, because I still think that that's some kind of a mistake. Kingpin is somebody that I really think that they could do a lot with. If they do go that route, I don't know if I would pick that for the solo film, though. I think that a good way to introduce Spider-Man in Civil War, which I don't know how they're going to do this. I don't know how they're going to balance out the search for Bucky, the relationship with Sharon Carter, the arguments between Steve and Tony, Tony's story, because he's got to have some kind of a story in there mostly. Black Panther.
From Age of Ultron, like.
Yeah. Have Black Panther have a representation in the movie and introduce Spider-Man. That's a lot to carry in one film. And
I really think the biggest mistake is calling this Captain America Civil War. If they just called it Marvel Civil War, you wouldn't have had to focus so much on Captain America, because all reports are saying this is still Cap's movie.
Right.
So stop. Like, if you take the focus off of him, you could bring the other characters into the spotlight a little bit.
I'm curious at what they're going to do with that, but I can't imagine Spider-Man being established more than, like, a quick fight scene or something.
Where he pops up and then... Because they're not going to want to fight over him like they did in the comics, because he's literally brand new.
Yeah.
While these Avengers have been around for 5, 6, 7 years. Cap 70. But
So I would love to see, in Civil War, introduce Kingpin. One scene, have Spider-Man fight with him and a lot of his goons. You could have the different people that, Hammerhead, and you could have Tombstone, and...
Or just have him fight, make Crossbones and associated the Kingpin. Because Crossbones is coming back.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Crossbones is going to be in this, too. Fuck. Man, they have so many people that they got to do with this.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see him fight them, and the movie itself that they can spin off of that, Kingpin isn't involved. That way they can throw their reference out there. They can have that kind of a thing. And if they want to go that route and have him in that cameo thing with Civil War, make it to where Spider-Man's brand new. Or not like brand new, not like it's first day. But he's pretty much just gotten started. He hasn't fought any villains yet.
Could be like he's either been Spider-Man for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, but not like 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, just make it to where he's recently gotten the power and he's still looking for the killer that killed Uncle Ben.
Right.
That way he could trace him back to Kingpin. And, Richard Fisk or...
Wilson Fisk?
Well, no, Richard is his son.
Oh.
You can have him in some involvement in the Netflix series. Maybe there's some kind of connection between them if you don't want to throw in Wilson Fisk or something like that in every little thing. You've got Michael Marco, which you could always make related to Flint Marco, which is really an overrated character. Sandman is only in those movies because Sam Raimi likes him. the Enforcers, that's the name of the people that I was thinking of. Big Man is one guy. Like, there's a lot of different people that he could be working with, and Spider-Man can just be fighting those people. And when you get that spin-off movie, I'm going Kraven and Scorpion. Scorpion's pretty the same as what you had said. Somebody has to make Scorpion.
Yeah.
And
in an attempt to replicate what Spider-Man is.
Yeah. Kraven, I think, you either have to put him in with somebody else that is like Lizard or Scorpion or something like that, because there's a good opportunity here to do something what they did with the Raimi ones, but not to the extreme. One thing I did like about Raimi's films was Spider-Man never killed anybody.
Yeah.
But they did end up dying. And you can kill characters off. I mean, it's perfectly fine. You kill off Malekith. We don't need to see Malekith anymore.
Right.
But you don't need to kill off everybody. I think Scorpion is the type of character that needs to die. Kraven doesn't need to, but he could. And I think a good way to introduce Spider-Man in that solo film, where you want to give him more of a backstory and you want to actually tell the origin a little bit, but not go back the whole thing, is to kind of do what they did with the Incredible Hulk movie, where you just do it in like flashbacks and you kind of go through it like that. But you can do that by explaining how they're making Scorpion. And somebody, I don't know who, maybe it's Jameson, maybe it's Kingpin, maybe it's Norman Osborn, whoever it is, I don't care, doesn't really matter, has to hire Kraven to hunt Spider-Man. And then Scorpion's created, and Kraven is also hired to hunt Scorpion. Maybe by the same person, maybe by somebody else, I don't know. You kind of have like a three-way battle going on, which means you can have Kraven versus Scorpion versus Spider-Man versus Kraven. So there's not that gang up kind of a thing where you need two people to fight Spider-Man and how can he beat them.
Yeah.
Scorpion represents that like crazy side that Spider-Man isn't. Like, he does need to be rounded up. He's fucking nuts. Kraven is kind of working on the good side, but he's the villainous side of the good side. And Spider-Man, of course, is like the true good guy. But, of course, it's getting all shit on by Jameson and stuff like that. So,
Right.
A lot of parallels between them. And I think that that's a good way that you can kind of introduce some of the scientific side of things, but you don't have to go with just, like, Norman Osborn. What about the theory that's going around now that it's going to be Mysterio and Shocker?
Is that actually going around?
That's one of the rumors, but, rumors are just rumors.
Taking that at face value, I've always kind of wanted to see Mysterio on screen. Like, he's got a lot of people that don't like him. I've always just kind of liked the character. I've just found him to be interesting. I did theater in high school. Kind of, I see where he's coming from a little bit. But
I had a fishbowl once.
Yeah. Shocker, you gotta get rid of the costume. Like Electro. If you're gonna do it, do like it's stolen Stark tech or something like that. Or like just something that will kind of tie it in, but like just a guy with gloves that shoot electricity or like are like hit you and they can like damage you real bad. That I don't see it as a threat to Spider-Man. Like, I know he is in the comics, but if you want to bring it into the real world, like a lot of the Marvel movies have done, where they've tried really hard to keep their characters grounded, a guy with tasers on his hand isn't really a match for somebody who has their DNA blended with a spider. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, unlike Scorpion, who is literally could go toe for toe with him, I just don't see the Shocker as being the muscle character. Like, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
Mysterio and Shocker is an odd combination. So.
And to me, neither of them has a story to tell.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather see them incorporate both of those into the Sinister Six.
Yeah, they work better on a team.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really do well as one-off villains. I mean, unless it's in the comics. Then okay, one
Yeah.
issue where Shocker is robbing a bank and Spider-Man stops him. Okay, but not a feature film unless you're going to do something like the Sinister Six.
I want to see, and again, we'll talk about this in part 5 with the Sinister Six movie. I want there to be a Sinister Six movie, but only as the villains of a Spider-Man movie. I don't want a spin-off film. And if you give me Sinister Six and you give me the six that I would want realistically, I want Doc Ock leading the team. I want Mysterio, Vulture, Shocker, and either a combination of Sandman and Hydro Man, or Rhino and maybe Electro or something like that. Like, but I want the characters that can't stand on their own. Chameleon, pointless for Chameleon. Right? He's not going to put up a fight.
Yeah, because if you have too many super powerful villains, then it becomes unrealistic that Spider-Man would even win.
Right. I want to see a movie where you've already introduced Black Cat and she could team up with him, and you've got. I still say that one of the biggest mistakes that they'd ever made in the films is they should have gone with Hobgoblin for Harry in Spider-Man 3 instead of Green Goblin wearing a fucking whatever the fuck he was wearing.
Like a skateboard, but could
Yeah, screw that. He should have been Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
But, bring me Venom working with him, or bring me Hobgoblin working along with Spider-Man or something, and Black Cat, and they can fight the Sinister Six and make it like this big blow-off movie. But you got to give me the people like Vulture and stuff who can't hold a film on their own.
But you know what? Even some characters you can't hold a film on their own, I still wouldn't want to see in the Sinister Six. Like, he works in the comics real nice, but don't put Chameleon in the Sinister Six movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of those villains that's like, you don't need him.
No, if you're going to do a Chameleon movie, it's going to be a bore, because he's going to pretend to be Spider-Man, and we already know the story.
Right. And anyone who doesn't know the story, like I said, like, surveying moviegoers, we represent, like, the 1 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
The other 95 to 99% isn't going to know who Chameleon is, and are going to look at that movie like, so what did he do again?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same reason why you can't have Beetle as the villain. People would be like, oh, he's fighting Iron Man? No, that's Beetle. Well, wait, Beetle? That sounds stupid. Like, he doesn't look like a beetle. What do you think about this idea, though? There are two other suggestions that I've heard from people. One of them I would rule out immediately, and one of them I would go, I don't know, maybe, but wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in. Some people are saying go with the Clone Saga, make Jackal and like Doppelganger and Kane and all them.
As much as it's amazing to think about, because I love comics and I love Spider-Man, I still gotta think about, like, Sony and Marvel Studios are putting out this movie to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start getting into clones, and who's the real Spider-Man, and I just feel like that's going to confuse people.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same argument as, like, Batman Beyond. Like, wow, that'd be really cool if they made a Batman Beyond movie. And then, like, my neighbor who lives down the street might like Batman, and it'd be like, wait, so it's like the future and Batman's a kid? Like,
right.
We forget that even though we think it's a good idea, it might not translate to a movie that may or may not be good, but people aren't going to want to see.
Mm-hmm. You can't treat the film universe as an animated spin-off movie like what DC does.
Right.
So that's why I'd rule out Clone Saga. But I do have a little bit of credibility to throw out there for the other suggestion that I've heard, Morlun. If you bring out that idea of him having this like totem, and you've got Silk and Morlun, and the whole, like, I guess you could say, like, the mythology behind him and all that, that might be an interesting direction to go. To me, you can't go without the first movie, though.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Morlun. What they could do, I mean, this would obviously just have to be a setup for other characters, You could go with Morbius, and possibly now that Blade is back with Marvel, set up like a Blade, either Netflix series, spin-off movie, whatever.
I'd rather see Morbius just in that. I don't want to see him in Spider-Man. I've never liked the idea of Morbius being a Spider-Man villain. Kind of the same as how I don't like aliens in with the X-Men.
Yeah.
You know, like when people start talking about the gem of Sidorak, and they're like, well, you know, he's not actually a mutant. He's got this magical gem. Fuck you. Just make Juggernaut a mutant. Don't make me have to sit through Spider-Man versus a goddamn vampire. Especially not the vampire from the animated series, because Jesus, that was bad. I would have.
What was the woman he was after in the '90s cartoon?
I should know this because he repeated it constantly.
Yeah. Was it Felicia?
It might have been Felicia.
Was it Felicia Hardy? If it was like Felicia, and it was like you're really trying to be Dracula now,
right? And they couldn't have him say blood, and he couldn't bite anybody, so he had to suck plasma out of its fingertip suction cups, which is
yeah, and like how Christ. Carnage would like he wouldn't drink the blood out of people, he would like absorb their life force or something.
Yeah, that was so stupid. So if you're gonna go with two different sets of villains here, how do you introduce Spider-Man in Civil War? How do you introduce him in his own film? What are the villains? What would you break it down to?
I would break it down to have none of his villains in the crossover, because that's just going to muck up Civil War even more. You're already adding in another character to their legion of characters, which some people complain about, but I mean, look at X-Men Days of Future Past.
Right.
That movie didn't feel crowded, and it had, like, countless mutants. But make Spider-Man just, he gets in the crosshairs of what's going on, and just gets sucked up into what's happening. And then, for his spin-off movie, introduce Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. Have him see Spider-Man swinging around and try to replicate that and weaponize it. And he creates Scorpion based on that. And then you've got Kingpin and Scorpion and the Mob versus Spider-Man.
And I'm going to go with Kingpin and the Enforcers and the other people like that in the crossover Civil War movie. And then Kraven and Scorpion in the solo film. So we got, you know, Kingpin and Scorpion in both. So yeah. Hopefully they don't just go, hey, fuck you, we're going with Doc Ock. Or like...
Well, now we're going with Black Cat.
Yeah, oh God. Well, you know what? That's going to bring us into part 3. We're going to talk about friendships and relationships in the movie. Should we have Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, Black Cat, the Osborns, the Brocks, you know, a lot of different things like that. Stay tuned, everybody, and click on that next video if you're watching this on YouTube. We will be right back. Welcome to part 3 of our discussion on the Spider-Man reboot that we're going to be getting with Sony and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've talked about should it be Peter Parker or Miles Morales. We talked about who should the villains be that we should see coming up soon. Obviously, we ended up going with Hypno Hustler and Big Wheel. But if you hadn't checked out those two parts, go ahead. Part 1, Part 2 are up there for you to go back and listen to. That's going to take us into another aspect of here. We've got villains out there that we can kind of play around with. We've got Peter Parker instead of Miles Morales. But a big aspect of the Spider-Man series, which have been huge in the movies, and apparently they're going to be toning down a little bit, thank God, is the relationships. Spider-Man has a couple people that he kind of has as his one true love. And it sort of depends on when you grew up and what you watched that got you into Spider-Man, or what you read that got into Spider-Man, or different personal preferences of what people like. He's sort of like Batman. Batman, for those who don't follow Batman, or for those who need a little refresher, he pretty much only has a couple people. But there are a lot of different options. I mean, you've got your Catwoman, and you've got your Talia, and you've got your Vicky Vale. Those are pretty much the three main ones. But then you've got your Jezebel Jets, and you've got Julie Madison, and you've got... Oh my God, I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to do that. Spider-Man is in the same kind of regard. There is no Lois Lane that he has to be with 100%. A lot of people think it should be Mary Jane Watson. And he has been married to Mary Jane. Makes perfect sense. But some people think that Gwen Stacy is his one true love, and the only reason that he's not with her is because she's dead. kind of a downer, but other people think it should be Black Cat. There's people that make arguments for Betty Brant. Carly Cooper is somebody who he's been dating in the comics before.
Damn, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, he even dated Liz Allen for a little while. Deborah Whitman. I can't remember this person's last name, but it was Indira Jimani or something like that from the one animated series. There's a lot of different options.
We won't see it in the Marvel films because Fox owns the rights. But he even dated Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, the Ultimate series, he was dating Kitty Pryde for a while. And, there's a lot of different options you can go with. But I would say there's probably only 5 that really have a shot. And you can even boil that down to there's really only 3. Maybe Betty Brant, maybe Carly Cooper, but you're essentially boiling this down to, is it going to be Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, or Black Cat? Felicia Hardy, for those counting that. Who do you think that we should be getting for this? Do you think we should even have a love interest, or should this be just pure Spider-Man kicking ass, or what?
Well, you're not going to like my answer to this, but you could probably get into some territory that Marvel hasn't gotten into yet, which is
Miles Morales.
as the love interest. One thing that Marvel's been doing lately is they haven't just been making comic book films. You had a period piece with Captain America. You had a political thriller with the second Captain America.
So good.
You had a space opera with Guardians of the Galaxy. You had sci-fi with Thor: The Dark World. It's not just that it's comic book. It's a genre film that just also happens to be a comic book-based movie. One area they can start getting into, because honestly, let's face it, they make money, is teen drama. People love Hunger Games. They liked Divergent, from what I can tell. Twilight was a huge hit. I'm not saying make that but Spider-Man. But you can, not so much the love interest, but you can really play up that this is a high school kid with high school drama, with high school problems, who escapes all that by being a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And you can start breaking into the teen film industry with Peter Parker now. As far as the love interest, I'm going to say that if you want to do teen drama, if you did go in that direction, do what they did with the Ang Lee Hulk when they were making the 2008, where the Ang Lee Hulk was not canon. It was not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sorry to those of you guys listening that still for some reason think it is, but it's not. But when they did the 2008 Incredible Hulk, they didn't do the origin and stuff because they knew you had already seen the Ang Lee one. It was only 5 years. So they kind of just alright, you know that story, so let's just go with where's the Hulk right now. You just saw Gwen Stacy die. You just had 2 films with her as the beloved love interest by fans and critics and everything. Depending upon how young they make Peter, if they make him old enough, you should introduce him where Gwen is already dead. That was his girlfriend, and he failed, and he didn't save her, and she died. The reason why I do that is because if you do Gwen Stacy again, then it's still going to be years and years and years before we see Mary Jane on screen again. And if you go right with Mary Jane, you're going to not confuse people, but you might upset some people who would have liked to have seen Gwen Stacy back again. So I say maybe do a flashback with his origin a little bit, play around with that he had a girlfriend named Gwen who died because of him maybe, but you introduce Mary Jane in the film. And for the love of God, if you cast somebody like Kirsten Dunst again, oh my God. But I think you would agree with me. I think people listening would agree with me. And for people who have no idea what I'm talking about, I think it would just be a cute little throwaway line. But he's got to meet her, and she's got to say, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot."
Oh, you got to throw that line out there.
Got to do it. They didn't do it in the Raimi films, and they just didn't get the opportunity to in the Webb films. I feel like her time is now. And please, for the love of God, don't cast Shailene Woodley.
Yeah, she's not, Shailene Woodley's got her positives and negatives and stuff like that. She could play some kind of a comic book character. She's not Mary Jane.
Right. And a lot of people were saying that she wasn't attractive enough to be Mary Jane, like they were complaining about her chest size or whatever. I'll have some agreement with that. Like I'll see that argument. I'm not going to want to go into a Spider-Man movie where he's supposed to be 16 and his girlfriend is 16 and I'm sitting there like eye humping her.
Right.
That's going to make me a little uncomfortable. But you have to do it in such a way that it's obvious to the viewer that this is a girl who is out of Peter's league.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't need to make her a porn star or a supermodel, but you make her a very attractive young girl who, just looking at her, you're like, all right, she's the popular one, and Peter ain't got a shot with her.
Right.
I feel like that's what they need to do with these new movies. If you did Black Cat, sure, make it like Batman, where he's got Talia, but then he's got Catwoman. But I wouldn't see Black Cat as the love interest, especially if they're not going to play it up as most of the movie like the Webb movies did.
That's where this gets interesting to me, because they have specifically said they want to go back to high school, which I'm fine with. Spider-Man's a high school character. He's aged over the years, but you can't just have him start off at 30, I can't see Black Cat being the love interest. Partly because of the age factor. I mean, Black Cat is essentially a sexual character.
Yeah.
The main thing people know about Black Cat is her chest.
And the skin tight outfit.
Yeah, so if you're going to have somebody who's supposed to be playing a relatively young, teenage, and not 18, but like 16-year-old Peter Parker, I don't want to see a 16-year-old girl with porn star tits popping out. And,
exactly.
If I was younger, I definitely would. And if you cast an 18 or older-year-old actress to play the part, well, I'm going to be paying attention. But but at the same time, that's just going to be really uncomfortable. And there's no way that you can have somebody, whether she's a part of the same high school or not, in that kind of a role and not get heat.
Right.
Now, you can have Black Cat in the future, when Spider-Man's already getting into college and stuff, because once you hit that college level, then you can start getting into a bunch of depraved shit, and people are okay with it. But you also can't, at the same regard, have Betty Brant, unless you make her some kind of like a little intern that is in the high school, instead of her actually being a legitimate secretary or administrative assistant. There you go. I said it. To J. Jonah Jameson. You can't have Betty Brant be a 30-year-old flirting around with a 16-year-old Spider-Man. So even if she was 25, it's still 10 years difference, and it's statutory rape. We're not going to do a situation like we did with Transformers where you specifically have to go, no, under this law, it's actually okay. No, that's creepy. I think you are really only limited to Mary Jane, Gwen, or somebody like a Carly. And you know what? Carly Cooper, I don't care if she's like one of the newer ones where it's fresh and interesting or something. I don't care about Carly Cooper.
Yeah.
And Liz Allen should be a bitch. There's a difference between the bitchy, hot, popular Liz Allen and the hot, popular Mary Jane. You want to do that popular angle? You go with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
The Gwen thing that gets me is I don't want to see them build up to Gwen's death again, but I don't want them to just say that she already died, because then that implies that Spider-Man's been fighting other people. So
good point.
I'm kind of in a weird boat here where...
Well, I'm pretty sure when he met Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy wasn't dead. So if you want to even play up the whole teen drama thing, now you've got his ex-girlfriend. Maybe they're not dating anymore. And now there's the new girl, and you even can get like a triangle thing going on.
That's what I was going to suggest. I don't think that it's as amazing of a series as a lot of other people do, but the Spectacular Spider-Man series, where they made Gwen like the nerdy best friend of Peter, I think they should go that route. Gwen can be kind of one of his best friends. Because, Spider-Man's supposed to be, well, Peter Parker is supposed to be a bit of an outcast, but he's not supposed to be a total goomer.
Yeah.
He's a kid that gets picked on and still has enough of life to him that he can have some friends and he can go out as Spider-Man and he can vent his frustrations and stuff, but he's not like the type of kid that goes all Columbine. He's got to have some friends with him, and that's another thing we're going to get into in a minute is who should be his friends, but one of them I think should be Gwen, but I think the main love interest has got to be Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Most people are familiar with Mary Jane. You can cast a really pretty actress in the role, so that's going to get the young people really interested. Maybe somebody like an Emma Roberts could play that part. I don't know. Then you're starting getting into age and acting talent and stuff.
Right.
We'll get more into casting ideas later on too, but I think you got to go with Mary Jane and hold off on Black Cat. All the other people, Deborah Whitman and stuff, nobody gives a shit about them. I don't know. At the very least, I think this boils down to they should downplay the relationship angle and not do what they did before, because if they make these movies the same as the previous two series where they're all about Spider-Man and his love interest, we've seen that before.
Right.
Give me more of Spider-Man fighting people, and he doesn't have to be just like completely barren from any kind of a love story, but maybe Mary Jane's not the second most important character of the whole damn thing. Like, kind of make it like the Captain America side of things. We got an entire Captain America the Winter Soldier where at most the love story of the whole thing, if you don't count Bucky, is that he kisses Black Widow in one scene and says he feels uncomfortable.
Or Black Widow is trying to say, like, hey, I'm trying to find you a date.
Right.
And then at the end, like, hey, check out that Sharon girl. Like, there you go. There was no love interest in that movie. But
and it ended up being an awesome fucking movie. One of the best comic book movies ever. Yeah. You didn't have to shoehorn a romance between Black Widow and him. So you don't have to do that with this either. So,
you want to know what romance I felt was actually really good on screen? Was the one in Guardians of the Galaxy. Because even though Quill was trying to force things with Gamora, it wasn't the main focus of the movie. It wasn't even a subplot of the movie. But it was a little flirting here and there that eventually by the end became like a respectful, like, yeah, you know what? You are a good person kind of a thing. It wasn't like the main focal point of Peter Quill's girlfriend is Gamora, that kind of thing.
Right. I actually like the relationship between Tony Stark and Pepper Potts in the movies too.
That one is really good, but I don't know how you would play that with Spider-Man.
No, that's, completely different types of characters, but...
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, like...
It's a good balance.
Somebody who's constantly there by his side, but, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Unless it's like you said with Gwen Stacy being his best friend, and it's like they're best friends, but there's obvious tension between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end, they're, like, banging. Because it's high school.
Right. But you know what's weird about that situation? I think that if any of the Marvel movies got it wrong, wasn't Iron Man, for the love interest kind of thing, wasn't Iron Man, wasn't even Incredible Hulk, because there's a reason for Incredible Hulk to have that. He's the one that she's the one that grounds him and stuff. Right. Thor is the one that has a problem.
Thor is a huge problem.
Yeah. There's no
chemistry between the two at all.
No, I don't want a film where they build it around, like, we've got to have a relationship here.
It's like star-crossed lovers, but they don't really have any sort of anything on screen. It's
No,
literally just two characters standing next to each other.
there's much more between Sif and Thor
Oh,
than
yeah.
there is, Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth. And I love
I,
Natalie Portman, and I
I blame
love
that.
Chris Hemsworth.
I blame the writers.
Yeah, it was shoehorned in the first one. The second one, they just needed to do it because they already established it. It's stupid, but
They really did not need to make her the carrier of the ether.
no, they shouldn't have had her in there entirely.
That's another discussion.
Yeah, at the very least, they should have gotten rid of Darcy.
Or made Darcy the love interest, because I'm kind of obsessed with Cat Dennings.
Now, that'll bring up a different topic, though, for this, and that is, if you're going to have the love interest kind of thing, you need some friends for Spider-Man, because he can't just be a fucking loner the whole time. God
Right.
damn, that's depressing. And he can't just be talking to Aunt May, either. Like, Aunt May and whoever his love interest is, they can't just be the two people in his life. So, there's a couple of different people that have been friends with him in the comics, but mostly it depends on these three. And again, we balance it out to there's three major choices you can go with: Harry Osborn, Eddie Brock, and Flash Thompson. Flash is obviously the bully side of things. I think you would be in agreement with me. You need a bully in this high school scenario. It's got to be Flash.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
So
For
Flash.
those of you who don't know, this is not Barry Allen that we're talking
Yeah. Flash can get his redemption. I loved how in Amazing Spider-Man they made him actually
become like not friends with Peter, but he like became humbled by the end because he liked Spider-Man so much.
right. Like there was a reason for them to do that, and I really liked that. So what do you think? Should we go with Harry? Should we go with Eddie?
I think there's no way not to have Harry in it. I mean, it's a staple of it that it's like don't have Green Goblin as the villain. We were both on agreement with that. But you can't have Spider-Man without Oscorp, and you can't have Oscorp without Harry, and you can't there's no way around it. Like Amazing Spider-Man, they tried to like get around it by saying Harry was off of boarding school. But I really think Harry needs to have grown up with Peter. As like that was the one friend he had when he didn't have any friends. And then like Peter humanized Harry by like making it so he's not just the rich kid that has no friends. But then Harry kind of humanizes Peter as in he's not just the nerd with no friends. Like they kind of became each other's friends.
Right.
And
I'm going
feel
with
like
Harry 100% too.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way you can not do that. And I mean, yeah, this is high school, but most people didn't have just one friend in high school either. So you can have Eddie Brock in there. I did not like what they did in Spider-Man 3. Not just even the casting choice, just the character. I just did not like him.
Topher Grace would have been a damn good Spider-Man though.
In his youth, which I mean, he's not old, but I mean, back when he was like starting out on that 70s show, then he could have been Spider-Man.
He would have killed it.
Oh yeah. Better than Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, by far. That bird face. Oh my god.
I actually just yesterday I was talking to somebody about Spider-Man 2, about how it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. And I said, but even it has its flaws. And they're like, why? Why didn't you like about it? Was it Doc Ock? And I'm like, no, I mean, he had his problems too, but I generally like Doc Ock. There's the one scene at the very end where he sees Mary Jane, and I don't know how this made it into the final cut of the movie. He sees her, and they're lovingly looking into each other's eyes across a distance at each other. And something is about to fall and hit her. And oh my god, he screams. And the face he made.
It's so bad.
I think they literally took that 5 seconds of the movie and created Spider-Man 3. Because that's pretty much what Spider-Man 3 is. It's like 2 hours of that 5-second clip.
Now, the problem with Spider-Man 3 is never the issue of there's too many villains. It's just they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And they did a lot of good things with Eddie Brock that in the comics that they translated pretty well in that, but they did a lot of things that were terrible. And I like the idea that Eddie Brock could be either way. Like, it sort of depends. If you're gonna go with the route of the Daily Bugle, they can't know each other beforehand.
Right.
And if you're gonna go with the friend angle, then you kind of can't do the spin-off movie because then he's going to be young enough, and you run into a lot of the different issues with that. So I'm saying hold off on Eddie Brock. Give me Harry Osborn. Make it to where it's very similar to what they did with the first series, but just ultimate more, like, I guess that's a good way to put it. Like, make it to where Harry Osborn is kind of a prick, but he deep down is a good person. He's just that spoiled rich kid who puts on a lot of airs. Right. And you can have him with Lily Hollister, and he's banging Lily Hollister, and he's telling Peter about how he should just bang Gwen because she's there, but deep down he's looking for something more. And you got Peter, who's bringing out the heart in Harry Osborn, Harry who's trying to bring out the more comedic side of Peter. And now, you don't need to have Harry and Mary Jane get together. You don't need to have a three-way thing, triangle going on with that. But maybe in the future, if you bring Black Cat into the mix, maybe Harry Osborn's the one dating Black Cat. Maybe Harry is responsible for bringing Mary Jane into the group, period. Because she's popular, he's popular, and he's just kind of like, you know what, you should be hanging out with me. And she's just like, Peter's better. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the way she was introduced in the comics, where literally Aunt May is like, you should talk to that nice Watson girl next door. And he's like, sorry, Aunt May, gotta go do this. And like the whole time you're not seeing her. It doesn't have to be the end of the movie, but maybe like towards the middle of the movie, he's finally like, yeah, okay, I'll talk to her. And then he sees it.
And he's like, oh, shit. Aunt May.
Now, how did he never bump into her in school when it was his next door neighbor?
Right. So
how did they ever fix that?
That
Did you go to a different school even though they were right next door to each other? Or like,
I think you can't get around that. You got to make them either go to the same school if they're in the same, next door neighbor kind of a thing, or you make them older or something. I don't know, like that. I think you got to kind of keep them going to the same school, the Sam Raimi mode.
Because granted, there's a lot of people that I went to high school with that I did not ever see or talk to either. So.
Yeah, Mary Jane's in the Bob classes, the standard ones.
She's always had Mr. Manahan as a teacher.
They're like, Peter, it's a great job that you were in AP this and honors this, and Mary Jane, well, you're graduating this year. We really need to get those fractions figured out.
Or if you want to explain why Mary Jane is so full-figured, maybe she failed a couple classes.
You got a couple teachers, and they're like, Peter, you are a genius. You're going to be really going somewhere in the future. Harry, you've got a lot of money. You're going to be going somewhere in the future. Mary Jane, you got some killer tits. You're going to be going somewhere.
You're going to marry great.
You're going to marry somebody like Harry. He's going to have a lot of fun with you. You're going to have a lot of fun spending his money.
Mutual trust there.
Right. Just fly in the face of all the political correctness that people are trying to get with Miles Morales. So, as far as relationships and friendships and all that go, any other things you want to bring out before we move on?
Not really. Those are the main ones. Got Flash, maybe Eddie. Got Harry, Gwen, MJ. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Alrighty, we got part 4 coming up. Casting ideas for some of the different roles. That's going to be a rather quick one, and then we're going to finish this off with some talk about where they go in the future. Welcome to part 4. We're still rolling on here with our talk about Sony and Marvel having a brand new reboot of the Spider-Man series for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Part 1, we talked about Peter Parker or Miles Morales. Part 2, who should be the villain. Part 3, what do we do with the friendships and the relationships for Spider-Man. Now we're going to get into probably one of our faster topics, casting ideas for some of the different roles. Mostly Peter Parker, because we didn't want to prepare way too much ahead of time. And let's face it, it's kind of hard to cast teenagers.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of like really prominent teenagers that are acting that we have access to because we're not casting directors. So
Also, we're in our mid to late 20s and we don't watch movies where they would be in.
yeah, we're not checking out the Disney Channel all the time, and we're not uh, obviously as connected as the people in Hollywood are to get auditions from people that we don't know. So you're not going to hear any unknown names because we don't know them. They're unknowns. But we figured we'd just throw out some other ideas. You know, if we end up mentioning some people that are villains or something or whatever, you know, happens, it happens. So, mentioning some people that have already been rumored for the parts, I'm going to throw out one person here that I'm not incredibly familiar with, but what I have seen of his, I think he can play the part good enough. Dylan O'Brien for Peter Parker.
Hmm.
He's the guy who is in The Maze Runner, and I don't know what else, but I've seen him in Maze Runner. He looks the part in my mind. He was kind of rebellious in that movie. I don't know if he could play the funny side, and that's one of the issues here. I think Andrew Garfield was amazing as Spider-Man. No pun intended. But Tobey Maguire sucked. He was just not funny enough. And you need to take the positives from Amazing Spider-Man, and you need to not lose those. You can't go back to the whiny Peter Parker, and you can't go back to the dead, just no personality Peter Parker either. You need the fun guy. And that's really difficult to find somebody who looks like the part, because he's got to be attractive enough for people to buy into the idea that he's, you know, a decent looking guy, but he can't be this like perfect supermodel looking guy.
Right.
So anybody who brings up Brenton Thwaites, I think is his name, the dude that was in Maleficent, that dude is pretty. Like he's
But
not.
you also have to believe that Peter's the kind of kid that didn't have friends.
Yeah,
Had like maybe 2 or 3 friends.
he's got to be like that, like the she's all that kind of thing, where if you put glasses and a stupider haircut and some bad clothes and make him like timid and shy, that people wouldn't be, you know, casting him as the homecoming king. But you got to make him to where he's not, you know, this gargoyle looking fucking weirdo. Like,
Right.
Because he's got to be charming enough and he's got to be handsome enough for Mary Jane to be interested and stuff like that. So I don't know. The only thing about Dylan O'Brien that I think is a negative hurting him, other than the fact that I don't know if he can do the comedic side, is that he's probably too good looking enough for it. Somebody else, though, that has been mentioned, and I don't think I've ever seen any movie of his, is Logan Lerman. He's apparently like the front runner. Have you ever watched any of those Percy Jackson movies?
I saw The Lightning Thief and I thought he was okay. I hear he's gotten better, but I haven't seen the things that he's been in. Like, what was he? Perks of Being a Wallflower? Was
Never
he in
saw
that
it.
one? I didn't see the Sea of Monsters, the second Percy Jackson. He's not an actor that usually appears in films that I'm the target audience. But from people I know that do watch him, he's good. So
I'm looking him up right now. He's 23, I think it says. So still kind of older to play certain parts, but he looks young enough. Like he could be a teenager in my mind.
yeah.
Oh, he was in The Patriot. He was one of those little kids in The Patriot.
Huh.
And apparently he was in The Butterfly Effect, which I don't remember all that much about the movie. Fuck, and the number 23, apparently I've seen more than one movie that he's been in. Holy shit. But no, I haven't seen Fury, I haven't seen Noah or the Percy Jackson movie, so I don't know if he's got that comedic side. I don't know if he's a good enough actor or what, but looks-wise, he looks the part. Like, I'd buy into him being somebody who could be picked on a little bit. Put some glasses on him, make him shy, little nerdy. I could see that.
Yeah, Logan Lerman was on the top of my list also until I hit another actor. But I'll let you still
Uh, who
continue with yours.
who's that one that you got?
Okay. So, like I said, Logan Lerman was on the top of my list, but I haven't seen any movies this kid has been in. Well, I saw The Wolfman, but I don't know how big of a role he had in it. I don't remember him in it. But goddamn, I can't pronounce his first name. I think it's Asa or Asa. I think it's Asa Butterfield. He was the kid who was in Ender's Game. And goddamn if he does not just be the spitting image to me of Peter Parker.
I think it's Issa, but
Issa,
yeah, usually I think that's pronounced Issa.
he was born in 97, so he's only just turning 18. He looks really young. He has glasses on this IMDb picture I'm looking at, and he looks like he looks like I want to beat him up. So like he looks like he would have been picked on, but he's not an ugly kid. And he has worked with the girl on my list for Mary Jane, who is not a knockout, but Sophie Turner, who she has actually been recently cast as the young Jean Grey in X-Men Apocalypse.
That kind of rules her out then.
Yeah, that's my only issue with it. But he looks the part. I don't know if you're looking at him right now, but to me, it's like if there's going to be a young Peter Parker, this is young Peter Parker.
He looks really young. He looks like he's like 12.
Right, he's turning 18 though, which means he looks so young that you can use him for
future.
10 years maybe down the line.
That's true.
And he still might have that baby face. And if you want, like, you have to remember, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were high school seniors. Like, I don't know how long Amazing Spider-Man into Amazing Spider-Man 2 was, because in the second one he graduated high school, but in the first one he was still in high school. But I have to assume he was at least a junior, if not a senior, and like not too much time had passed.
Right.
Because they still played on the father thing in the second one. I have to believe that if they want young, this kid could play a sophomore in high school.
I could buy into that. I haven't seen any of the movies that he's been in, but if they felt like he was a strong enough person to carry pretty much the entire Ender's Game, because he's the main character, right?
Yeah, he was Ender in Ender's Game.
Oh, that's the character's name is Ender?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And he was also in that movie Hugo in 2011.
I didn't see that
and
either.
he was the boy in the striped pajamas from 2008.
Either. Fuck.
Well, he was Bruno in that movie. So like even though I haven't seen those movies, he's been a star for a while now.
If he's been cast in a wide variety of movies like that, he's probably a good enough actor to pull it off.
Yeah.
I don't know about like comedic stuff. If he's good at that.
Yeah, I don't even know like his acting talent.
Mm-hmm.
I can only say based on the fact that not only has he been in good films, but on his IMDb page, he's got work. He's got 2015 stuff. He's got 2016 stuff. It's not like his filmography just stops like 3 years ago. He's been acting consistently. So he's got to be casted in all those roles, you know what I mean?
Right. I could see that. You know what? If they go with really young, then man, I have no idea who could play any of the other parts. But like, if they do go with somebody who looks young like that, maybe he would be the best choice. You know, he's got the credentials behind him for other movies. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with him, so I don't know about that.
I just stuck a grenade in like all of our other options.
Right. Yeah. Because I have, for the most part, all older people. I had a suggestion if we were going to throw out somebody for Harry Osborn, Anton Yelkin.
Yeah, I could see that.
But he's way too old to be, the buddy of Asa Butterfield.
Right. And the guy that I had is also too old, and that's Dave Franco. which, yeah, his brother was Harry, but they look like brothers, but they don't look identical. And he is an actor in his own right, other than just being known as,
Mm.
yeah. But that would have been my pick. But then, like you said, this kid, damn if I know who would play Harry, who would play Eddie, who'd play Flash, and the fact that I had, other than that girl who's Jean Grey, shit, her name just left me.
Sophie Turner.
Sophie Turner, yeah. I don't watch the show, but there is Game of Thrones. There's an actress on there, Maisie Williams. She's cute, but she's not a knockout like I would have thought for Mary Jane. But she's the same age as Butterfield. And actually, their birthdays are like 2 weeks apart. But she also looks really young.
So that's another thing. When we were mentioning before, you can't go with like the overtly sexual black cat character and have like these, these
right.
17-year-olds and stuff playing these parts and stuff.
If you need any credentials for this girl, other than being a TV star with Game of Thrones, where she's been on there for years, she's also rumored, but like I think it's pretty much confirmed. They're doing a Last of Us movie.
Never played the game.
Oh, okay. Well, in The Last of Us, it's about an older man and like a younger girl, and the younger girl, Ellie, has been cast as this girl. This actress has that part. So somebody liked her enough that she's in there. She's also got other, not big name things. She's been in that show, Cyberbully. I think it's like one of those ABC Family things.
I definitely wouldn't have seen it. ABC,
right.
Especially ABC Family. Oh, God.
Yeah, but like I'm looking at this girl's track record on IMDb, and just like Butterfield, there's no real gap in her resume. I see 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Like she's one after another. She's doing stuff. So I have to believe that means she's good. And if you guys are listening and you're fans of Game of Thrones, I've never seen it, but she's Arya Stark, and if she's any good in that, like obviously she was good enough to land the role in The Last of Us. I have to believe she's at least a semi-decent actress.
I'm looking at this list right now. I don't recognize any of these names of this.
That's the biggest problem. I think you and I might be a little too old to be casting like young kid actresses and actors.
But. Right. This list that I'm on ranker.com, and it's 50 actors and actresses under 18, and of course some of them are like 8 and stuff, so they don't count.
Right.
This Cameron Boyce kid looks like he could be just going by looks alone, could be a decent Harry. Maybe this Uriah Shelton kid. But I am actually familiar with this one name, though. Bella Thorne.
That sounds familiar.
She's a redhead. She was some kind of Disney singer chick or whatever. But she's like 18 now or 19 or something. And she's very cute. And I think that she was actually on an episode of Red Band Society, which is going to make me bring up another guy. I think that show was underrated and shouldn't have gotten canceled, by the way. Just throwing that out there. The main character on the show, or one of the main characters, Charlie Rowe, is the actor that played him.
Uh-huh.
He is somebody who he has to play somebody in some superhuman movie at some point. Like, if you were going to cast him in any role right now, right off the bat, I would say, look, this guy's got to either be Peter Parker or Dick Grayson. Like, it has to be. He is a damn good actor. He understands how to be comedic, but also, like, his character in the Red Band Society is the jock who ended up getting cancer and had to get his leg amputated, but still ended up being, like, you could believe him being the jock in high school, but his character never got to the point where he was like a douchebag or an asshole. He was the one
Uh-huh.
who like united everybody together and was kind of funny and stuff. But I think that kid is just he has a huge future ahead of him. And if you put him as Spider-Man, I'd buy it. If you put him as Dick Grayson, I'd buy that immediately. He's roughly around that 20-something age rank, so that's when you start getting into a little bit weird. But I'd even buy him as Harry Osborn too. Like that kid could play a lot of different stuff. And if you're gonna throw his name out there and you're getting in like the 20s and stuff, that Bella Thorne, if she were to play Mary Jane and he were to be Peter Parker, that would work perfectly fine. Who is
Yeah.
this Ariel Winter? She looks like she could be somebody. Oh, here's a good one. Shit, I didn't think about this at all. Ella Fanning could probably be a really good Gwen
As
Stacy.
Okay, I was gonna say as MJ,
No, no,
but as
not a.
Gwen, I can see it.
I could see her being the kind of nerdy friend of Peter Parker. Put some glasses on her, put her hair in a ponytail.
Is she naturally that blonde, or am I just seeing her in like a role?
That I don't know. I think she's
She
probably
seems to
just
have darker hair, but it doesn't matter. They can always dye it, whatever.
yeah.
But
Unless
yeah,
you're James
she's
Bond.
not. Yeah, she's not a knockout. She's not like, but she's not ugly either.
Right.
She's average looking,
Mhm.
which basically, at least from what I remember in the comics, Gwen was average looking.
Yeah, Gwen was
Like,
never supposed to be a 10 out of 10.
right.
And,
Unfortunately, they got Emma Stone to do it, who's like
Yeah.
my 9.5 out of 10.
Right, exactly. She would have been a really good Mary Jane.
Yeah.
But Jane Levy is somebody I've seen mentioned before. She's probably a little too old for somebody like an Asa Butterfield. Emma Roberts, too.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that Isa Butterfield is like throwing around there and like the names floating around, I have to cry internally and like not leave my room for a few days that I can't have Anna Kendrick as Mary Jane,
I love Anna Kendrick.
right? She's like the only reason I went to go see Into the Woods.
See, I wouldn't cast her as Mary Jane. I think if she was going to be in any of these roles, she'd be a good Betty Brant. But I just...
Yeah, as like
man, I
that
love her.
side option.
Yeah. She'd be the main course for me. But I think we got to
Peter's silver
go...
medal.
Yeah, we got to go with people that are young enough that we don't know who the hell they are.
Yeah. In which case, I'll say for my final, what you pronounce it, L or Ella Fanning?
I thought it was Ella, but it might be Elle.
Okay. I would say I would agree with you. She would be a really good Gwen Stacy. I would say this Bella Thorne. She would be really good. And she's got a movie, Amityville: The Awakening, which, okay, it's another generic horror movie coming out based on a classic. But if she's any good in that, then there's another name thrown around, and she's younger. And then Asa Butterfield for Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
And some old douchebag kid for Harry.
Any one of those Disney Channel kids for Flash or
Some little annoying fucker.
yeah.
All right, that'll take out us for the casting decision side of things. Obviously, we don't know what we're talking about as much there as we can with the other parts, but hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to wrap this up in the next part, talking about where do we go from here. Welcome to the final part of episode 16. Sony and Marvel are going to be rebooting Spider-Man for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've been breaking down everything from the villains to the love interests to who should be punching and pounding those two, respectively.
Giggity.
Casting ideas was in part 4. We are in part 5, the final section that we're going to have here, because we can't do this all day. But that's essentially, we had broken down what they should start off with. Now we're going to get into where they should go from the future. There have been talks that they still, for some reason, want to do a Venom spin-off movie and a Sinister Six movie. And I'm going to say right now, if you do a Venom movie, okay. Like, I like Venom and I like Carnage. They're two of my favorite comic book characters ever. Like, outside of Spider-Man or in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But it's unnecessary. You don't need to do a spin-off. You can do the two of them in one Spider-Man movie and it'll be fine. But you cannot do a Sinister Six movie. Do you think that that's an option, or are you in the same boat as I am, where they probably saw the plans for Suicide Squad and thought, shit, we should do that before they get a chance to?
I think they had Sinister Six as an idea before DC. Because, I mean, DC, up until this point, when they made Man of Steel, they didn't even have a cinematic universe planned. They literally made Man of Steel and went, huh, a lot of people liked that movie. Let's make a cinematic universe. At least, like, with Marvel, they kind of had their shit together from day one. They may not have known every single thing they were going to do since Iron Man 1, but they had a pretty good idea. Sony, they keep saying they have a plan, but then things keep happening. I'm going to say they had the Sinister Six before DC had the Suicide Squad. But I'm going to put a little asterisk on that and say the only reason they want to do the Sinister Six still is because not only Suicide Squad, but Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Now, of course, this is speculation. So,
Right.
But at the same time, knowing what I know from documentaries and from just people talking about the way that these things go, I'm 100% convinced this all started back a couple years ago where they went, look, Spider-Man makes us a lot of money. How can we take what Marvel's doing, where they've got a lot of movies that are all tied together, and make as many movies as possible based off of Spider-Man and just make as much money as possible? And they probably went through and they went, okay, look, we've got Spider-Man. We can keep doing Spider-Man movies. We can do a spin-off movie of Venom because we've been talking about this for years. What are some other things we can do? And then they got into the idea of, well, we can give Black Cat her own movie. And we can do a Sinister Six movie because people might recognize that name. And we can do an Aunt May fucking movie. And, like, they probably went through and they saw...
That was literally somebody smoking salvia, and they're, like, throwing darts at a dartboard, and they're like, Aunt May. There you go, man.
Right.
Like, you guys remember when she was in that movie with the guy with the car? That was a good movie.
Like, I guarantee that had to have been it.
Yeah.
And if they would have had other characters other than Spider-Man, they probably would have done the same thing. If they would have had the Batman series under their control, they would have went, look, let's do a Nightwing spinoff, let's do a Batgirl spinoff, let's do a Deathstroke movie, let's do a Robin movie, let's do an Outsiders movie instead of Sinister Six, let's do a Birds of Prey movie. They probably would have went through the exact same thing. Let's do a solo Joker movie. Because Marvel wanted to do this too. They wanted to do that Magneto film. And there was talk about a Cyclops film.
Yeah, and that turned into First Class.
Right. Like, they got this broad-ranged idea and then went, you know what? Not really as good. Let's kind of crunch it all back together and make one good movie instead of a couple shitty ones. And there was going to be X-Men Origins for a lot of people.
Right. I remember that.
But thankfully they thought better of that idea. They introduced that into First Class, and then look what you got out of it. A good First Class movie, an even better Days of Future Past, and you revitalized the series. Instead of tanking it downhill like you did with X-Men Origins Wolverine and X-Men 3. But Sinister Six is a series where, to me, they can't exist on their own. Like, Suicide Squad is basically, let's take some shitty side villains that are kind of on the good side, kind of on the bad side, enough that we can play with it. I mean, Deadshot's not a hero.
Right.
But...
none of them are heroes.
They are contract killer type of people that aren't the murderous psychopath people like the Joker and stuff.
Right. It's usually the weapon that somebody purchases to go and do something. Which there has been times where some of the villains have been hired to do a good service, and they did it.
Yeah. And there's a long-running history of the Suicide Squad in the comics, too. Like, this isn't something that, like, the Sinister Six, they haven't had this reputation of being able to go do good things.
They've always been kill Spider-Man.
Right. They get
Where
together.
the Sinister Six, just like every other team up, has had many different people on their roster.
Right.
Usually because they die, but
And it's like, it's in the title. They are the Sinister Six.
right.
But Suicide Squad doesn't inherently mean evil. Neither does Task Force X.
Right.
It's just, you are on a suicide mission and you're a squad.
Yeah.
You are Sinister Six. You're evil motherfuckers. And
we are forcing you to do something good.
I'm really hoping that, I mentioned this before, and I'll kind of backtrack a little bit and mention again. We don't need to have a trilogy anymore. We had our trilogy. We had a trilogy essentially with Iron Man that they're continuing now, and they're proving that you can get more than 3 movies out of something. You don't need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right. And some characters, like the Suicide Squad, you can have those characters, depending upon how the film is going to go, pop up in other movies and maybe have, like, not a direct sequel, but have a second Suicide Squad film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of people forget, the second movie does not have to be a direct sequel.
Right.
You can have Suicide Squad, and they're going to go, say, capture the Joker, or try to kill the Joker. Then have, like, 5 or 6 years of DC films come out. And maybe you do, like, another Suicide Squad with a little tag on it, like Suicide Squad, the blank mission, just whatever the fuck that would be called. But then it's just the Suicide Squad.
They're all shooting guns with blanks.
It could be them going after somebody like Deathstroke.
Yeah. Hell, you could have Deathstroke lead the team and have a brand new set of team members.
Right.
Total spin-off kind of thing. But you can't, with Sinister Six, build a movie around them being the good guys and have them be the bad guys in Spider-Man.
Right.
And that knocks out 6 characters that you could use in the Spider-Man series.
Which is really scary because a lot of times when we hear that we're going to get a movie about a bad guy or a villain or something like that, typically they're on screen and it's like, oh, well, they're kind of redeemable and you kind of like them. Like Maleficent.
Mm-hmm.
Maleficent is a villain, but she was portrayed in that movie like the victim who meant good, but then because of the things about her was forced into evil. Like, no, I want to see killers, rapists, arsonists forced to go do something the entire time. Like, I want Deadshot, that entire movie, to just be waiting and waiting for, like, the right moment where he can take the kill shot on Amanda Waller. They should want to kill their handler. They shouldn't just be like, okay, yeah, we're going to go do this mission for you. They're literally being made to do this.
Right.
And the entire time, they should be looking for the out to go wreak havoc. That's what I want to see.
I want to see, like, a varying level of them. Like, somebody like Captain Boomerang. There's been an incarnation that's been heroic in the comics, and then there's been the horrible bastard. So it kind of depends on what they're going with. I think they're going with Digger Harkness, and he's just a bastard. So, you can make him more of a dick than Deadshot. Like, Deadshot can be more like, look, I'm just a contract guy. I do what I'm told. I've killed people. Yeah, it's bad, but you know what? I needed to make money, and I'll kill more if I need to make money and stuff. But I might have a little bit of a moral code. And then there's somebody like the Joker who doesn't,
Right. Well, Joker has never been a member of the Suicide Squad.
Right.
The fact that he's in it, the theory is he's either going to be like Hannibal Lecter, and they, like, go to him for advice, or he's going to be the one the Suicide Squad's going after.
Right. So, when you try to apply that model to Sinister Six, none of them should have any redeeming qualities.
Right.
And none of them really have, great personalities to begin with. Like, are you going to do Vulture as, like, the funny one?
Right.
No. Are you going to do Dr. Octopus as the guy who you kind of root for? He's the protagonist? I don't want to see that fucking... goofy looking bastard be the guy I'm rooting for. He's an asshole. Like, he, was Peter Parker and took over his fucking life and the superior issues and stuff. Like,
Right.
I think you got to go just look. If you want to do Sinister Six, you got to do them as the villains in Spider-Man. You can't have a solo film.
The problem is, if you do a solo film of them without Spider-Man, what the hell are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole point of them is they're banding together to kill him.
Right.
And then if they do band together and it's focused on them and they're the main characters, but Spider-Man is in there, then why isn't it just a Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, and you're not supposed to be rooting against Spider-Man.
Right.
And if they're fighting another villain, then that's 7 villains you've taken away from future Spider-Man movies.
Right.
And if you go,
why would the villains be fighting another villain when literally, like I said, the point of the Sinister Six is to kill Spider-Man. They're not there like, let's form a team to take over the world, or let's form a team to like destroy New York City, or let's form a team to go rob these banks. Their purpose is Spider-Man's demise. So what else are they going to be doing?
Right. I can't think of a single situation where this works out, because I've even heard people go, well, you don't need to use the big important ones. And then if you're going to use the shitty villains like the Beatles and Jack-o'-lanterns and stuff, I don't want to fucking see them in a movie. Like,
right, put a bullet in Chameleon's head and be done with it.
Right. Like, I can't think of a single way that this movie works, so I hope that this is a situation where Sony is just, like, spitting a bunch of venom out. Oh, shit, I didn't even think about that. I was like, what are you saying for? They're just, like, throwing out ideas, and they're trying to make it seem like this deal with Marvel, be like, look, guys, we really don't know what we're doing. We'll work with you guys, but we had so many plans, and we were going to make so much money, and you guys really need to give us a big cut, because you're going to screw us out of this movie and this movie and this movie. And they're basically talking up the sale. When it comes down to Kevin Feige and all them, I really hope that they have a good enough sense that they go, look, guys, can you drop this fucking Sinister Six movie? Like, we can do a Venom one. Okay.
Right.
But you can't even do a Black Cat movie. Like, there were people that, you're not a huge fan of the Bond series. But
I like Bond, but like,
yeah, you're not like I am,
not like you are.
Yeah, where you're like, oh yeah, that gadget in the one movie is from whatever, and like, But are you familiar with the Jinx Jordan character from Die Another Day that Halle Berry played?
She wasn't the Bond girl, right?
No, she was the Bond girl.
Oh, she was? No, then I'm not familiar with her.
That movie followed the same pattern of a lot of them. Bond movies are very formulaic, and that's one of the reasons why they're awesome. But there's almost always 2 to 3 Bond girls in each movie, and there's the one that typically ends up being bad or gets killed, or both. Then there's the one that's like the one that he bangs in the end. A lot of them tend to be somebody who he works with in some capacity because they're another agent or something.
Uh-huh.
Like there was in Man with the Golden Gun, there's Mary Goodnight, because they all have stupid ass names.
Oh, yeah.
And she, in the books, was like a secretary, essentially. And in the movie, she's more of like she's more than a secretary, but she is not a full agent. Like, she doesn't know how to do shit in the movie. But she's kind of like a go-between, sort of.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing with Strawberry Fields in Quantum of Solace. And in the Die Another Day movie, Halle Berry's character is an actual NSA agent, just working with America.
Okay.
Teams up with Bond, gets to have her own fight scene, kills the other Bond woman, who is Rosamund Pike, who kicks ass in Gone Girl, and she better win Best Actress. Side notes aside, after that movie came out, people were going, they're going to give Jinx her spin-off movie, and we're going to have the female James Bond series with Jinx Jordan.
For just a second when you said Jinx, I thought you meant the DC villain, and I was like, why?
No, the Pokemon. But people were clamoring for that, and they were like, let's have, the female James Bond spinoff. it never came into fruition because it was just something that people just talk about. You know, they're going to do a spin-off of this and they're going to do a spin-off of that. And we're going to get a Cyclops movie and we're going to get a Jean Grey movie and a Nightcrawler movie. No, we're not. You know?
Right. And we shouldn't get all of them.
No, because you know what happens?
They're great in the comics, but they're not interesting on film.
You know what? That's the thing. When you do a spin-off movie in the film universes and stuff, it's not the same as in the comics. So you can do, you know, a one-shot Catwoman movie, one-shot Catwoman comic. She could have her own series in the comics. But you do a Catwoman movie, it bombs.
Right.
You could do a mini-series dedicated to the backstory and some big story that deals with Elektra Nachios. Anybody go see that fucking Elektra movie that likes it? No. And the same applies with Sinister Six, I think. You can't do a spin-off Sinister Six thing. You can probably pull off a Venom one.
I can see Venom because you could always have Venom versus Carnage.
Yeah, and he's got the Lethal Protector thing where you can have him be the anti-hero who's struggling to figure that out and stuff. The bad part about it is you have to introduce Venom into Spider-Man before you do that. Because he can't be Venom and, you know, without Spider-Man.
Right.
So, to me, you don't do either of these. If you do any of them in the future, you do Venom, but you do that down the line. And if you're not going to do a rated R Venom movie where you've got Carnage killing people and stuff like that, then you know what? If you're going to do it PG-13 anyway, just do a PG-13 Spider-Man movie with Venom and Carnage.
And they were also planning on doing a female-led Spider-Man movie.
That too. Like, you can't do a Black Cat movie. Who's she going to be up against?
And the regular movie-going audience, it doesn't matter how popular Jessica Drew is. You can't do Spider-Woman. Because everyone's going to look at that like it's just a girl Spider-Man.
It's the same as Supergirl and Superman.
Right.
It's, by the way, why the fuck is Supergirl getting a TV show? Like, god damn it. I don't understand why everybody loves Supergirl so much.
Nah.
She's just a stupid-ass character in my mind. Same for Superboy.
Give me Power Girl.
Even Power Girl. Like, I don't want to see any of that.
I mean, I'd see Power Girl over Kara. But...
I'll even argue Tim Drake and Jason Todd shouldn't have even really existed to begin with. Like, you know, that's taking it to a more extreme, but Supergirl, Superboy, you know, they don't need their own spinoffs, and you don't need a Black Cat movie. You don't need a What If Gwen Stacy was Spider-Woman movie, or, you know, I'll tell you a comic that I never read. Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. That whole thing.
I'm not even familiar with it.
That side thing that they've had where it's all just like romance stuff, and Superman Loves Lois Lane too. Like, I ain't gonna read that kind of crap. Anything that's built around, let's just give somebody a spinoff for the sake of a spinoff. No, you can't do that. Like, I'll even argue I love Nightwing. Nightwing is an awesome character. Dick Grayson is without a doubt the best Robin and stuff. But you know what? The people that really want a Nightwing movie, you know, who would he end up facing? Like,
right.
It's difficult to figure out. And if I can't figure out a way to do a Nightwing movie, I damn sure can't figure out a way to do a Sinister Six or a Black Cat movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be okay with, like, if you introduce Black Cat and she's, you know, been built up in a movie or something like that, you could have her guest star on Daredevil and have her involved with Kingpin. Like, you can get more mileage out of these characters. You don't need to do spin-off movies. What would you like to see, though, when it comes to how they fold them into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just Spider-Man movies in the future? Do you want them to do just a bunch of Spider-Man movies and keep them going as often as possible? Or do you want to see, like, take breaks every once in a while or recast people?
Here's the problem. Right now, only things that we know are that we are going to see a new Spider-Man in a movie before a solo movie, July 28th, 2017. That's literally all we know. Which means, I mean, it's even though it's obvious to us, there's only 2 movies, well, 4 movies technically, that come out before that July 28th, 2017 movie. You got Captain America, not Captain America, you got Avengers Age of Ultron. It's already done filming, and I doubt, even though some people think it's going to happen, I don't think we're going to see a post-credit scene with Spider-Man.
Nah. We're gonna get Captain Marvel, if anything, or something.
No,
Actually, we're gonna get Black Panther, if anything.
I actually thought we were going to see a setup for Thor Ragnarok.
That's true, we could get that.
Yeah. But then we're going to get Ant-Man. No reason to have Spider-Man. Then we're going to see Captain America's Civil War, based on a comic book series in which Spider-Man was a main character.
What if we do, by the way, get something with Ant-Man, where there's like the post-credit sequence is an ant and then a spider comes along?
That's it. That's the setup for Spider-Man. There's literally just an ant and then a spider eats it.
Yeah, he just eats it and you just hear nom nom nom, and then he's just kind of like, yeah, Spider-Man, guys. Like,
then you hear Paul Rudd go, wait, I wanted to change my name from Ant-Man, and now there's Spider-Man?
They just have Paul Rudd come, like, walk into the shot, break the fourth wall, and go, guys, I'm sorry about Ant-Man. This kind of sucked. But Spider-Man's coming, so how about that? Don't leave Marvel, please.
Don't leave the theater yet, guys.
Yeah.
But then after that, you've got Doctor Strange, which he's a new hero. There's no reason to muddle his story and his origin and his villains with a random Spider-Man. So I feel like Spider-Man is definitely going to be in Civil War. So we're going to get him in Civil War. Then we're going to get him in a solo movie. And that's really it for now. There actually hasn't been any deals, anything on the table, anything announced about him in other movies. We literally could be speculating on things that won't happen. Because I don't know, like, nothing was, I don't think, written legally. I don't think there's anything that says Marvel, like, people seem to think Marvel has Spider-Man back. No, they don't. They get to use him in the MCU, but so far that's only for one movie.
Right.
And then they're going to help with the spin-off, the solo film, which I've been thinking about this. Has anyone even said that the solo Spider-Man movie is in the MCU?
Oh, yeah, I think that they announced that it is.
Did they? Because in the original press release, sure, it's been assumed, but I haven't really heard about Spider-Man being amongst the MCU films. Which it has to be, because it's going to exist within the cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't heard Marvel talk about that movie like it's going to be one of theirs. I don't know. But if that's the case, then Sony could just do whatever the heck they want. But then it would confuse people as to why there are two different Spider-Man characters, and why you had to get rid of Andrew Garfield if Sony's Spider-Man is different.
Right.
But I don't know. What even was your original question at this point?
What it boils down to is, where do you think that they should go in the future? Do you think that this should just be another series that keeps going the way that they've been doing with the other ones? Or, do you keep going even after Avengers Infinity War Part 2? Like, I'm still saying immediately, Infinity War Part 2, even though they've got Inhumans, which comes after it, which makes no sense to me right now.
Right.
Hopefully they aren't just like, we'll figure it out, that they have a plan. But to me, maybe that is a big reboot kind of thing or something.
I thought they were going to soft reboot it, where they recast some of their original characters and they completely redo it. But then I thought, why would you introduce Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Inhumans right at the end where you're literally about to reboot?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. I figured if they're not going to do a reboot, which they could, the Infinity Gauntlet can rewrite reality. But if they're not going to do that, I assume they're going to go with the Illuminati. And we're not going to see Robert Downey Jr. often, because he's going to take one of the gems and just go off and do his own thing.
Maybe. Or maybe they'll just use that as an excuse to recast, but keep the characters going still.
Right. Like, that might be the end of some of the actors' contracts, but the same characters will still go on and do whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense to have a brand new Spider-Man in 2017, have Black Panther in 2018, Inhumans in 2019, Captain Marvel in 2018,
Doctor Strange.
and then Doctor Strange in 2017, and then in 2020 you're rebooting.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I feel like they might start doing recasts at that point, but they're just going to go. I mean, Illuminati wasn't a storyline, if I recall. It's just a group. So it's not like you're going to have an Illuminati film, right?
Right. I mean, you could kind of make a whole film about that, but
Yeah. And I mean, it's obviously going to be different because Marvel Studios doesn't have the rights to the Submariner. They don't have the rights to Xavier. They don't have the rights to
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. So obviously, it's going to be a different kind of Illuminati from the comics. But there's stuff that I think they can do, and it doesn't have to keep escalating. Like, first Avengers was citywide, second Avengers is global, third and fourth Avengers is galactic. That doesn't mean we have to start like doing other universes.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
multiverse.
Right. They don't have to keep going grander and grander. You can then bring it down and go back to like street level. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to just keep getting bigger.
Right.
So with the Spider-Man movies, the only issue that I'm going to see is the fact that they've got these Netflix series. Because you've got Daredevil, who is in Hell's Kitchen, who is right there. And you're going to have to explain now if Scorpion is tearing through Brooklyn. Why doesn't Daredevil, who's right over in Hell's Kitchen, see what's happening? Well, see. But
there you go. There's your explanation why he doesn't see what happened.
But with his super hearing, why doesn't he know what's happening and go help Spider-Man?
Right.
Why don't the Defenders at the end of this Netflix thing, why don't they jump in and help? Like, now we've reached a point where they've sort of figured it out, like, oh, well, these films happen too close together, so Captain America, that film takes place in like 2 to 3 days. He doesn't have time to just be like, yo, Iron Man, help me. Like, there's people trying to kill him like every hour. So that is explainable. But eventually, with all these heroes, you're going to hit a point where, goddamn, Doctor Strange is about to die. Why can't he call up the Avengers and be like, guys, I really need your help right about now?
Right.
So that's the only trouble I see with Spider-Man, is that you've got heroes right there in New York who are just going to disappear. And then if you have Daredevil Season 2 or Season 3, however long it's going to take before Spider-Man comes out, then why, if a building collapses in the Spider-Man movie, why don't you hear about that in Daredevil?
It's going to be tough to balance out, that's for sure.
Yeah. And it's the only problem I see with Spider-Man, is that you've got all these villains who are really powerful, and if they do too much destruction, now you're going to have to worry about all your other characters.
And then you throw Sinister Six in, and the whole thing goes crazy.
Right. Then you've got 6 powerful villains tearing through New York City. Spider-Man's off on a field trip somewhere, I guess. And Daredevil isn't jumping in there to help. Like, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Daredevil doesn't want to see a Sinister Six movie.
He's not going to see a Sinister Six movie.
Exactly. That's how I hope.
Yeah. If they do a Sinister Six movie, or if they do Spider-Gwen, I might wish I was Matt Murdock.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, if we start hearing more information about any of this, you guys can check fanboysanonymous.com, see if anybody feels inclined to give their opinions about that kind of stuff. If huge casting news or something like that happens, guaranteed somebody will end up jumping on it. In the future, we're going to be covering all the cinematic movies that we can. You know, we always do movie reviews for those and stuff. Later on this month, we're actually going to be doing the first of 2 different editions of the For Real Movie Club that are going to be based off of that. We're going to do the Phase 1 movies in March, and then in April we're going to do Phase 2. That'll give us a little bit of a prep to go into Age of Ultron. Then, of course, we're going to do a review point of that. Later on, we're going to shit all over Ant-Man if we need to. And, Eventually we're going to figure out a lot of the different answers to a lot of the questions that we proposed for this episode. So, I think that's pretty much going to do us in for all the Spider-Man talk, as we did in the other parts. Make sure that you guys leave your comments below. Tell us what you think. Casting decisions, villains, love interests, Peter Parker, Miles Morales. What do you think is going to happen in the future? Anything you guys want to say about Spider-Man, leave your comments below. We have one more thing we got to do for this, and that's just to plug some other things. We're kind of in plug mode right now, but Sam, is there anything you want to throw out there?
No, just check me out on fanboysanonymous.com. I'll be keeping you guys up to date on any Spider-Man news that pops up.
Alrighty, guys. Check out all the other podcasts that we've got going on. If you are on iTunes or Stitcher, then subscribe on YouTube. If you're on the opposite, do the opposite. Pay attention to, if you're a wrestling fan, smarkoutmoment.com for anything that's going to pop up under that branch of the mango tree. Listen to the All Talk Show whenever we decide to do that podcast, because that just pops up out of nowhere. We've got the Sand and Snow podcast coming up soon on fanboysanonymous.com for you Game of Thrones people. Dace Man Show is every week, megapowersradio.com. Lots of different things that you guys can check out depending on what you're interested in. So, if you're a fanboy like we are, then you're in the right spot. For Sam Lassio, I am Tony Mango. This has been another episode of the group meeting, and I think that this group meeting is adjourned. See you next time, everybody.